What's up, Sales RXers? Look, with outbound conversion rate benchmarks being as low as 3%, it's no secret that it's really tough right now for a lot of sellers. And if you're an individual contributor or a senior leader in marketing, RevOps, sales, any role that has a revenue related metric that you have to attain, it's time to find a better pipeline channel. So, what's better than selling to someone who doesn't know you or your product? Selling to someone who does. This is where Champify comes in. Champify monitors key contacts at accounts like champions, post-sale sponsors, admins, heavy users, and they enrich that data to detect job changes, determine relevancy for outreach, and then assigns and alerts reps with those newly assigned leads. So if you haven't tried out Champify yet, you need to give it a shot. Stop spinning your wheels with outbound heavy sales motions and start selling to people you've already sold to. You can click the link below in the show description for an extended proof of concept and free data test from the team at Champify. What you'll do is click podcast in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Let them know that the Sales RX podcast sent you so they know who to give the VIP treatment to. Now let's jump into today's episode. Sorry, but if you've been a sales leader for more than 4 years, you can't teach me about video prospecting because you never actually did it. You know what I'm saying?
Like hand in hand, like these millennials who are dominating that space because they know what they're doing. I mean, they get it, and I mean, it goes into the same kind of thing of like, if you're an AE and you're director of sales, VP of sales, whoever is trying to tell you what to do, they've been sold them forever. They don't have anything to say but unsolicited advice, solicited, unsolicited, whatever it may be. But they haven't shown any kind of initiative to actually understand how you're best taught or how you're best coached. Like, you need to slap on the ass, let's go get them, tiger. You need to come to Jesus in the corner, let's pray about it. You know, what do you need and how do you learn best? And the 7 worst words in any business, you know, it's like, we have always done it this way. So the leaders who are just going with that, right? They don't know what they don't know. I don't know what I don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? Like, we can admit that if we let our pride and ego go to the side, which C-suite's a little trickier for that to happen. But people just want to share whatever they want. The storytelling, you hit it right on like the nail on the head. Like, okay, great. I did a post at one point asking who's the best storyteller out there that you know, because it's not going to be the guy who's been doing sales for 20 years. You know, he might know how to storytell, but he might not know what's going to resonate in the very best way right now because he's not out there doing it right now. He has people under him doing it. So it's like feedback loops almost, where like C-suite's looped in, but nobody knows how to even create those. I'm just over the advice of like, new me, new year, so on and so forth. I'm going to do this. I'm like, but are you really going to jump in and do all these new initiatives when you have zero clue on how to even do them? It drives me nuts. It really, honest to God, drives me insane. So, I mean, sometimes I'll stir things up a little bit for fun. You know, I'll see a comment or a post and I'll have to do a little comment on the side of some sort of, well, who trained you on this? I'd love to learn more about what you're talking about because it's super interesting. Knowing this person just has no clue what they're doing, because it's like, give a little bit back of showing like, okay, how do you do it? Not just like do it, but how? And like, why are you doing it? Is it working? What are your results? Like, don't just come at me with telling me what to do, because I promise you, like, I can hear all your advice all I want. I don't have to take one bit of it. And that's my choice.
And it feels tough because I feel like there are a lot of people that really know what they're doing, but they feel like because they don't have a big LinkedIn following or people aren't hiring them to come speak at an SKO, they don't go out and talk about it. And that's probably part of imposter syndrome. But I guess I want to dive into like kind of like a practical and tactical tip from you as someone who, you know, is connected in the space and does post great content and gets good opinions out there and good tactical tips. If I'm a rep and I'm like, I want to get better, but there's so much fodder on LinkedIn these days, I know that's where I want to start. But like, how do I start there? How do I find people maybe in my network or in my current company to learn from to get better at what I'm trying to accomplish without getting a bunch of bad advice from people who are talking about, things that were relevant 20 or 30 years ago because they haven't
Yeah.
actually been on a sales call in over a decade. Like,
Yeah,
where
like,
do
I
I
would love
start?
to hear that, actually. Speaking of that, like, I would love to actually hear someone 20 years ago in sales jump on a sales call today and just see
Yeah.
how that goes. I would love that. That would be a
Terribly.
fun it would be
Terribly.
terrible, yeah. So, I would say get away from LinkedIn, which is not really the advice that makes sense, but it does in this way. So, if you kind of let's pivot a bit. So, if you're hearing all this noise on LinkedIn, you're seeing all this noise, you're intimidated by this noise, and or the insightful posts or the wisdom shared or the people who are the thought leaders or the James Perry likes to call them the quote unquote elites, which is I think is a great word. They don't engage with you, but you engage on their stuff. And so get away, step back from that and go join some Slack communities. So that's where I think a lot of wisdom and knowledge is poured that's actually beneficial and actionable. And people are way more inclined to say, hey, this sucked and I failed. What do you guys suggest I do? Opposed to sharing it with their whole network where who knows where it's going to go. And
Hmm.
then their boss might see, their company might see. So that being said, too, it's step outside your company and then look for advice in other places with other people outside of your org. Even if it's your ICP, jump into a community, which go to Airtable and then Google it, Google Airtable community Slack communities. It gives you a massive long list of all these different, thousands and thousands of communities. You can narrow it down into it being okay. This is in the US, great. This is all geared towards CMOs or whatever it is, and then sure, go lurk a bit, but ask questions, engage in these communities because there's so much knowledge in some of these. Totally. So, I know you and I both joined social and it's,
Yeah.
it's not promoting your content. That's the whole
Hmm.
point. It's not to promote what you're creating. It's to learn alongside other people who are trying and testing and saying, "Hey, this is not working. What do I do?"
Yeah.
So I would say step away from the noise, step away from the company and internally whatever's going on there, whoever's talking there, and then literally just jump into a community. You don't know what you don't know until you ask.
Yeah. And I agree. And yes, plug for social here because I've consistently got my TikTok views now every post over 1K. So I'm like super stoked. It's been really
Yeah.
helpful. I've learned a lot. I've been able to create more content. I've been able to understand, even just things like where to upload from because that does mess with the algorithm. I've learned a lot because I was like, man, my TikTok content, like I'll have one good one every month. Like, how do I get more consistent with the engagement? And I figured it out.
Hmm.
I didn't figure it out because I'm not viral and I don't really care about being viral, but I
Right.
figured out where I'm getting more eyeballs on the posts and more relevant
Hmm.
eyeballs because I'm seeing people's names that I know that like this post, like this post. I'm like, okay, I know these people from LinkedIn. I know them. It's translating over all those sorts of things.
Right.
It,
It's going full circle. You can actually have this like loop of things in this viral loop of seeing, oh, this is clicking here, and I can repurpose here. And I mean, it's strategizing together outside of where all the noise is coming from in a smaller, more intimate way where like you and I, when we exchange messages, back and forth through, I think it was social
mhm.
actually, where we first, and I was like, hey, it's time for us to actually meet and say, hey,
Yeah.
because we had run into the same circles within Pavilion and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, let's say, hey, because love your content. You engage on mine on yours, let's do this. And so that's the power of it too, is like we wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for stepping outside of the noise. And then the company like I'm with, I'm trying to figure out this whole strategy of evangelism and what that all means, and
Hmm.
how to not just generate all this noise and stuff, because I know my content's literally what's top of mind, what I'm thinking about, what's going on, that I have, I'm wearing my Nike kicks right now. And like today I did some post about just do it, but not in the form of like, hey, go get him, Tiger, go, let's do this. Is your company actually showing up and promoting in a way that is so simplistic and easy, and people know you for that swoosh that you have, swoosh, quote unquote, you know, but it was just based off of what I was thinking about. It had nothing to necessarily do with what I'm seeing others do, or, I hate the word piggybacking, but I'm saying it, or, piggybacking off what somebody else did and them kind of redoing it in my words and all that. It's like, I personally have never been one to care about what anybody thinks. And so I'm going to say what I want to say. But at the same time, and I could say my reach that I have been able to get to, in the audience that I'm able to kind of disperse all my content to, has been wildly contributed to the fact that I am just me and I just will say what I want to. And I don't talk
Hmm.
about my, the company. I don't talk about uh, the solution. Really, it's more so, it is talking about the solution. It's not talking about and the problem, but it's not talking about like the specific company. It's like, I can help you. And that's what people want, but I'm not going to tell you this is how you need to do something, because one size does not fit all. There's not just like a one highway you can go down. Like, highway goes both ways. Like, there's multiple lanes that you can go down. Like, not everything is going to be. I'm always on the left side. I'm going as fast as I can. I'm making sure that person's getting on my way. So I'm trying to make sure that I keep going. And that would be, analogy of like, okay, I'm not going to go straight to LinkedIn and always just get my info there of how I should go do things. I'm going to go jump into a community. I'm going to go learn from people that I've seen their names and, they know I trust them based off of what they are producing, what content they're distributing. And then I'm just going to ask them for help, because when you don't ask, like I said, like, you don't know. But it is it's intimidating for some. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's, well, in communities, you can have different conversations that you can't really have on LinkedIn. Like, I think like Will's a great example. Will Aiken, he posts a lot
Yep.
of cool stuff on LinkedIn, but I feel like the stuff he posts in social is way more tactical. It's kind of like some secret sauce, some of the ingredients to
Right.
the secret sauce. And because I can see who he is, I know the results that he's had. It's not to say I take everything
Hmm.
as virtue, because nobody's perfect, but it's a good starting
Right.
point to A B test, right? So, hey, Will recommends
Yeah.
this on TikTok. I'm going to go try it. If I don't see a positive result, I'm going to go back to maybe doing a hybrid version of what he recommends and what I was doing. But that's the
Yep.
problem, is like you said, people get so overstimulated on LinkedIn these days, and just in social media in general, because one VP of sales is saying to do it this way. A director of customer success is saying that this is the best way to do retention. You hear like all these different things that people are talking about, and it's like, well, which one is truth? And that's the problem, is I
People
think
are
we're
like,
so.
these reps. Yeah, they're like, what do I do? Do I do it
Mhm.
all? Because that's never going to be the right strategy to do it
Yeah.
all. Like, can you test it all? Sure. See what works for you best. But if you're in an organization that's telling you there's one way to do things and one way to do things only, I'm going to encourage you. It's time to hop. And there's a lot of companies that are having layoffs and whatnot, but there are a lot of companies hiring too. And when you do immerse yourself into some of these channels and groups and people who are just really want to help you and
Mhm.
share that secret sauce with those within the community, and because they value what your opinion is going to be with certain things too, that you bring your expertise to the table, it's a game changer completely. I mean, you're going to be able to actually, none of it's Bible, like you said. Like, I'm not going to take it for it being like, this is Bible, this is actual truth, this is the gospel right here. I'm using preacher daughter language here, but it's, you realize, okay, Will, I can, like, he has great material that he puts out, great content, but he also will ask questions in there too, because there's also things that he's like, what am I doing wrong here? Like, and then someone else out of nowhere kind of will step up and say, hey, have you tried this? And it's like,
Mhm.
great, let's learn from each other in a different way. Use that unorthodox word. Unorthodox meaning you don't have to go LinkedIn, the LinkedIn route all the time. Like, you can go and join a community and get that intimate like conversation going. That's so simple. And I mean, I've kind of gone to the dark side, if you will, as in marketing recently, from sales. And so I'm learning all things that I thought I knew that I don't know at all. I
Mhm.
mean, I know nothing marketing related. I feel like I really don't. Granted, I have someone teaching me marketing who is like a brilliant human with marketing. So I know I could trust that leadership right there. And with that being said, it's like I'm going to stay internal with what I'm trying to understand is going to benefit me within the organization I'm in. So there's one part of it. Then the second part of it is I can still go outside of my company and still learn as well. I don't have to stick with that. So there's two parts. Like if your company's not letting you go and do content to begin with, and saying we do things this way only, um, no go, get out. And then, but if there is leaders within there who they understand, like they get you, they trust what you're doing, like you trust them, trust has to go both ways, and you're able to do things but you don't know how, like stick to that person. Like find your people within your company and find your people without, second part being the people outside of your company. Because you can't just learn in one space. There's so many
Yeah.
different opportunities to learn, but find those spaces and then next the ones that aren't going to work for you. I mean, I've been in a plethora of communities and I've exited out of way more probably than I've joined. So because I'm like, what value am I getting here? And what's the end
Yeah.
game? What are we doing? There's more lurkers than not. Can't be this whole, okay, I'm going to just take all this like free info that people are sharing. Like, ask questions, people. Just ask people what they're doing that's working and what's not working. Gain that insight and then try it. If it doesn't work, shit, then that's okay.
Hmm.
It's okay. Try something else because there's more things that you can do. And say your social game is just not up to speed at all. And you're like, I've got 1,000 followers and I'm hearing people tell me I need to be at 10,000 by like the end of this year. That's not feasible. How am I going to do that? I don't even know how to write content. Okay, then go ask somebody. But don't rely on the LinkedIn elites, quote unquote. We're stealing what James Ferry says again. Don't rely on them to tell you what to do because you're going to feel pretty shitty about yourself a good bit of the time because they've been there, done that, tried and true, so on and so forth, or luck was on their side or timing. So you can't compare yourself to whatever they're doing to where you're at. Stay in your lane, but know that everybody can have their own lane too. Like you can swerve, figure things out, but you don't have to stay in one place to still be in that one lane per se. Like you're still going in that direction. You can switch lanes.
Yeah. It's like how everybody wants to do the Alex Hermosi subtitles. And I'm like, why? Why not do the subtitles the way you like them to look? Like everybody wants to do things in mass.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is,
Oh
even
yeah.
if you just do things to cater to the 1% of people who are going to align with your vision and your opinions, that's still 79 million people in the globe, right? So I love how you
Right.
said, like, I'm fearless. Like, I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. I'm not too concerned with a bunch of other opinions. Like, I'll find my audience. Your audience will find you. And I think that kind of plays on the
Mm-hmm.
topic that we were talking about a little bit earlier before this conversation, even about, finding where your buyers live. I think for me personally, my
Yep.
buyers live where I live. My audience will come to me as the sales doctor. Like I had a call where somebody said, hey, I've engaged with your TikTok a little bit. And it blew my mind when this VP of sales said that, because I was like, you're not the TikTok audience that companies say we don't want to be on
Right.
TikTok. We don't want to be on TikTok. It's a bunch of kids dancing. Okay, well, a 42-year-old VP of sales watches my TikTok. So that's against your
Right.
demographic for not creating TikTok content, SaaS companies.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, I
Yep.
feel like we speak the same language. And that key phrase stuck out to me so much because I'm like, it kind of, I had this conversation in November. And I think for the last
Mm-hmm.
2 years leading up to November, I've been trying to create content to fit in with all the people that create content and what's talked about and
Yeah.
what's relevant. When I go, I've kind of strayed a little bit from that. And here's somebody saying, I align with your opinions and your viewpoints and I want to do business with you. And I'm like, I need to double down on that, So I need to be more like
Yeah.
Amelia. I need to just double down on my
But
opinions.
I
And
don't
we
know if
need,
that's the phrase, but yeah, no, I don't know. I'm like, if I had a dollar every time someone told me that, I think I'd have a dollar. But like, so thank you. But it's so true. It's like though, and that's part of kind of really just the evangelist kind of role too of like you're doing it by just creating content, that's meeting your buyers where they're at, speaking their language, showing up where they are. And I mean, I would say now that, well, 2022, I would contribute about 85% of revenue generating, uh, just calls and stuff that I've had, or just connections that I've made, or help that I've helped, done with other people, or just engaging with people with has been sold through Slack communities, which is pretty wild. but it's because that's where my buyers were at. And it was so easy to just say, hey, yeah, I think I can help you out with this. Boom, great. We have a DM back and forth. Sake of simplicity, here's my link. If it makes sense for us to chat, we chat. And it's kind of a talk shop. Let's just be normal. Or I've offered to say, like, hey, if you want to quick jump on a quick huddle, let's do that if that's easy, if you got time now. And that's not really the norm, but they're right there. And I can see their green little dot, just like you can on LinkedIn. You could do the same thing on LinkedIn if you want. Message them, hey, if you got like 15 minutes now, let's just kind of sync right now, if that makes sense on your end. You've
Mm-hmm.
got the little LinkedIn video thing where you can go and have a quick call with
Yeah.
them right there. So there's other ways to do things other than like having the SDR to the AE to the demo to da follow up, all of that. Like you can go ahead and make your sales cycle a whole lot quicker and easier, meeting your buyers where they're at, and then doing things that's just going to make life easier for everybody all around by saying, here you go, and here's my link if it makes sense for us to chat. Should there always be that? No. Feel it out. Have that EQ too that matches the IQ of knowing, like, all right, I know what I'm doing because you're my ICP. You're the person I want to chat with. That's why I'm chatting with you to
Mm-hmm.
begin with. But also the EQ to know, let me read this, like how this person responded to me. Are they going to be like, whoa, I'm not going to have this engagement with you at all because that was really aggressive just to go ahead and send your link and whatnot? Maybe. So, know your audience, read the room, even if it's a virtual one, and figure out, okay, does this make sense? Does this not? And I don't care what if Jesse Allett, let's give him a little shout out, what he says, about, not saying what he doesn't, I care about him. He's a good friend, but I'm saying what he says about gurus, right? Like what the gurus think. He has his whole thing of unpopular opinions that he likes to share. And the gurus won't like this. And I think it's pretty funny because it's like, okay, that kind of goes with the elites. Like some people might not like what you have to say, and that's okay. But as an extrovert, I'm fine with that. As an introvert, I can't relate to that as much. So looking at some of the things that people post, I'd be scared shitless totally. Right? Like I'd be like, I don't know what to do. So back to what I was saying, it's like go to where your buyers live, figure out where that is, or just go find a community of people who are learning together and just lurk a little bit if you have to. But don't be afraid to just shoot a DM and say, hey, like, I have no idea where to start. Because that's how I had to
Mm-hmm.
start my sales career 100%. I didn't even know what an SDR meant. Like, I didn't know the acronym. And I was like, who do I have to be? And I was like, I have to do this and I'm going to do it. And then it was just, okay, there's a better way. There's a better way all around to do this and find where the people who I'm going to speak their language, and not just that, it's like tone matters, not over talking, actually listening and then responding in a way that resonates with them because you're helping in overall, whatever you're doing, like show up to help. Because if you've got that mindset of not helping, I mean, I'm not selling to you right now, like I'm helping you because my solution can solve a problem you have. So let me tell you how we can help, opposed to it being like, here's what we do and this and this and this. And then ask the questions if you don't know what the hell you're doing. When you don't know what to do, have a go-to list of questions just to go to, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people will appreciate you more when you admit that you don't know something and then you'll go find an answer.
Yeah. I like how you said it about, it doesn't need to be just the standard SDR to AE way, which I think we're already, I mean, after 2 decades of that working out, I think we're due for a change. Because with
I'm
the
ready
rise
for it.
of,
I'm here for it.
yeah, product, customer, evangelist led growth, like the one word you don't hear in that is sales. So like sales led
You know
growth, you
what?
know what I
It's
mean?
so
Like,
true.
yeah, it's all about
It
the
is.
people you already have, retaining them, making them evangelists and winning them at the beginning, just because you have a product that's easy to self-serve, easy to access. We always talk about the acronym SAFE. People like making safe decisions, simple, accessible, and
Mm-hmm.
flexible, right? And if you have something like,
Yep.
I mean, like great example, I always talk about Calendly. I can go buy Calendly myself. I don't need a salesperson to sell
Right.
me a membership. And if I had a sales team of 5 people, we could all just buy them individual. We don't need that, Now, if I'm
Yep.
Salesforce and I'm trying to integrate, 28,000 calendars across one another. Yeah, maybe I'll talk to Calendly about enterprise solutions, but I really do feel that personally sales is in for a makeover in how we do things, because why not have more AEs be full cycle? Because it allows me the ability to be free and go
Totally.
access communities and do those things. Because the unfortunate the con of the kind of
Mm,
proposition you have in this is like, that's hard to manage SDR to AE handoff when you have that crossover of like just
yep.
jumping on a call and doing those things. Like maybe an AE is not ready, they can't take a call, maybe SDRs aren't really doing like pre-discovery
They don't
qualification
have the
calls or just
product
booking a meeting.
knowledge, right?
Well, and
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to manage that process. It's so nuanced, right? It's not, here's
Yep.
your sales sequence that everybody goes through. You know what I mean? It's a
Yep.
little bit more, like you said, EQ, right? It's a little bit more strategic. It's a little,
Mhm.
requires a little bit more emotional intelligence, but it also requires less hands in the honeypot, which I think is why, we'll move to
Yeah.
a world where maybe SDRs don't exist anymore. They're actually junior AEs, and then they move to AE level 1, and then AE level 2, and then senior, and then enterprise. But we allow them to do a
Totally.
little bit more prospecting because it's I've just seen so much success with reps that, I mean, Joey Alvandi from Toriel, he was posting on
Ah,
LinkedIn about deals that he was closing. And it's like, yeah, 2 of the 3 were inbound, but then the third one that he got before he even has a quota was just generated from his own efforts through social selling and using LinkedIn and
it
talking to people. And it's like, yeah,
totally.
that's how it works.
And he kind of will praise people too. I mean, he had a post the other day, and I was so like I was super grateful. He has been someone who was like sung our product like from the rooftops all over social because he sees such value in it, and he'll tag me in things. And so I went to our CEO and I said, "Hey, we got to do something for this guy. Like this guy is literally he's going to either go out of pocket and just buy this, but he is like bringing a lot of people in. Like he's evangelizing on our behalf. And
Hmm.
that's what's missing. Like you were saying, it's like getting your users or your customers to spread the good word of whatever it is that you do, retaining them and continuing those relationships because right now more than ever it is so important to have that customer retention. Like you do not want that churn, and churn number is pretty high probably for a good bit of SaaS B2B companies. Just like you're looking
Hmm.
back at last year and you're like, oh wow, that's not pretty. But so people are thinking, okay, what do we do, how do we do something new, what do we change and shift and pivot to? And okay, maybe you don't. Maybe it's not all about this massive new year, new me, shift, pivot, boom, boom, boom. Or we've always done things this way. Maybe there's this in between of like, let's take a breather. And maybe we do get like sales execution should be the focus of actually training our people well to know how to talk to C suite, even if they are an SDR, but they're going to have the knowledge to be able to do so. So, have
Hmm.
not calling growth, throwing a bunch of bodies in, calling growth, having less and teaching more. And that being the exponential amount of just, I mean, volume that comes into your company because your people know what they're doing and how to talk to people. Uh, you're not going to buy from a salesperson who has no clue what they're talking about. When I was doing RevOps as a service, then I was selling that. I had no clue what the heck I was doing at first. Literally no idea. But Rosalind Santalena, she joined the company I was with, and I clung to her like crazy. I mean, I clung to her because she knows RevOps inside and out and has been doing it for over 2 decades. And I'm like, I don't even know what this person is saying right now. And I'm over talking and I'm saying things that make zero sense. And they're looking at me with their head tilted and kind of thinking, this girl knows nothing. And I'm like, all right, I got to bring in somebody who knows something. So that's the whole like leave leave that ego pride at the door because you're going to sound dumb when you're over talking. You just keep going and trying to act as though you understand something that you don't understand. And I have like tried this a million times, and for some reason, it's never clicked that like maybe you should just shut up, Amelia, and don't talk so much. And then have my list of things that I would go back to and ask that question, whatever question was relevant at that time, get that information. Then there's places you can go that's without inside your org. If you've got those one or two people that you like totally trust, that they're not going to go and say like, hey, Mr. Miss CEO, this person has no clue what they're doing. We need to get rid of them. They'll actually say like, hey, let's schedule time and let's chat about it because I got you. You're good. find like good leaders who are going to help you grow, and then find the people within the communities. So, all I said too, we ended up giving Joey just a free Reggie license because it was like, thank you for being just like a good human and like showing up for us, because his stuff is so social driven.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is. And I met him at SaaStr. He had the privilege of sitting with me in an Uber, and I was trying to rap to the Uber driver. So him and I became close friends after that fun time. And, it's been cool just to cheer for each other through just being able to actually say, hey, we both are in this learning space right now, figuring out what and how to sell to the right people who are going to be customers for life, for life, quote unquote. But, they're not going to say, this is not what I want 4 months down the line. They're going to be
Yeah.
people who come back and then they're going to go share with others. Hey, this is a great place, because buyers are buying from people they trust. They're buying from people like we know, or they're going that PLG route if they want to. They're not going to request a demo. That's PLG, right? But it's also like they're skipping the salespeople.
Yeah.
Salespeople are not having at bats because they're not out there learning or asking the questions of how to do things to where they get in front of their audience to get the at bats organically, opposed to it being, just this motion of I got to call. I got to like go. But prospecting being key. I mean, I will say, let's just put a claim out there. By 2024, we're going to see more orgs that are going to be full cycle sales reps within them than not. I'm saying
Yeah.
it.
SDRs will probably only have a hand in like enterprise or commercial space where we do it this way
Yeah.
because we've done it this way, right? They only buy that way because
Right.
that's how they've done it forever, and they're going to keep buying that way. But when it comes to, selling to SMB mid market, for sure. And I love, as the person who was Joey's SDR manager when he first broke into tech, I love hearing like the good news from other people and all the positive things that they have to say about him. Because
Yeah.
I remember his first interview and he showed up and I was like, oh, there's something about this guy. And then just to see like his growth trajectory since COVID has been like,
Amazing.
it's exponential. It just speaks. But the other day him and I were talking too, and I was like, wow, you passed me up on followers. That's impressive, man. It's like, you really got some special way
You're
to
like,
go.
wow, okay.
Yeah. It's like a
Thanks a lot, Joey.
Star Wars, the apprentice has now become the master. So I was like,
No, that's
but then,
totally
but then
happened.
being able to
Right.
turn, like you said, like asking for feedback, like I used to manage
Mm-hmm.
him. Now I'm over here asking him for LinkedIn tips. I'm like,
Isn't
how
that
do you
wild?
do this better? But I don't have the ego to be like, oh, I know better. I used to be your boss. I don't give a shit. Like, dude, this is
Right.
great. Dude, you fucking blew up. Let's learn. I want to learn. Like,
What
what
did
am I
you
doing wrong? Here's my
do?
approach on LinkedIn. Grade me on a scale of 1 to 10, and then
Mm-hmm.
like show me how to get better. And
Mm-hmm.
then he showed me how to get better. And I said, now why aren't you selling this to people? That was my next response when
Right.
he showed me
Why
what to do. I said, why aren't you selling this to
it's
people?
that goes into another whole interesting thing real quick, is like, okay, if you're kicking butt taking names at your job, should you be selling a side hustle kind
Hmm.
of thing to people? Or is that going to take away? Is that going to enhance? I think it's all situational, but depending on your circumstances in life, your bandwidth that you can take on,
Yeah.
and the freedom that your company gives you, that's a whole nother thing too, is like, are will companies allow their reps to be able to go and have this freedom to either go prospect on their own, like you said, like SDRs, like they've got to hit a certain amount of dials a day, and it's all metrics right there. It's all, how many did you book? How, what, this. And it's monthly. It's not just overall quarterly goal of I need to hit this quarter. And it's very, very, very by month. What did you do that was revenue generating, but it was inside the box that we put you in? And so I've always kind of pushed that status quo of saying, like, I don't see a box. Even if it's there, I'm kind of like, all right, how can I kind of carve a little area out? And I'm going to just jump out of it real quick. And I'm going to say, hey, here's what I was able to do with jumping out of this box. And this is where I want to go. There's companies where they did not really like that too much. And I said, sayonara, I said, okay, then this isn't for me, because I know that social is the way to go. But I also had no idea what I was doing when I started posting. I don't even know when I started posting. Like, I really don't, because I didn't keep this whole follower count or this whole I don't know who's engaging with what. And now you've got access to all of that information, which is overwhelming. And then if, you're just starting out posting whatever, you're like, oh, 59 views. This is great. I suck. But no, you don't, because everybody started somewhere. So stop selling yourself short thinking that you should know everything right away. Nobody knows everything right away. If they do, they're on like another level from another planet, whatever. Don't worry about them. Worry about you and you only. If you can't not, just worry about you. Like you are counting somebody else's money and you're not making a dime. Literally, you're not you won't make a dime out just looking what other people are doing. You're just counting their money for them.
Yeah.
I think Nicki Minaj said that actually.
I don't know. I stopped listening to her after her first album. I lost touch. I did love that first album though. Amelia, this has been awesome. Looks like the great thing is, it looks like we're gonna get a 2-parter out of this, which will be great for the listeners. We'll be able to publish multiple weeks with multiple insights. If people want to connect with you, how do they get in touch with you? How do they ask you a question? If they're trying to connect with you online?
No, totally. I am on LinkedIn all the time. Shoot me a message underneath my name. It has streamline your content. Click on that. It just will take you to like a networking call if you want to chat. Happy to just learn from other people as well as like helping other people, because you can learn something from everyone. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's where you're going to find me most. Reach out to me in Pavilion, social, probably any Slack group that you think is going to be a really great one. I'm probably there. So
cool.
Best way to do it.
And we'll have links to Amelia's LinkedIn in the show notes below, as well as the episode description. If you're interested in engaging with the Sales RX community, the podcast, myself, or our private club, Not Another Sales Community, will have access to all those links in the membership description below as well. That's all we have for today's episode. Amelia, thank you so much for taking the time to come and spread these insights, and we'll catch everybody on the next one. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.